Cool. I'm live on YouTube. So I'm just going to set up some other live streams at the same time. Let's get some more people in here. And I want to share with you guys some news as well. That's somewhat unrelated, but still quite interesting, I think, for all of you. I don't know if anyone saw my Jimmy O Yang live stream last night, where I was had a bit of a rant. Oh, well, not rant. It was more of a critique of the show. If anyone saw my Ouyang Wang Chung. Cool. Right, I got that going. Right, so I got the YouTube going. All right, now let's do my famous giving it a plug on Instagram. You've got to cover all the channels. How is everyone today? Who have we got in the live stream at the moment? Because my WeChat is always popping. Hello, Richard, Tia, Leo, Anna, Nuggets, Mindy, Samantha, Lee, May, Melina with Vincent. Hello, guys. Cal Studio, Cherry. I recognize a lot of your wonderful names. And thank you for the support and lovely likes. I'm just going to give this a bit of a plug. I've just uploaded a new short, actually, which I posted everywhere because it was relevant to every platform. I've just posted a short on conferences in China, which has actually done really well on Instagram, of all places. So Instagram is never a big platform for me. It never has been. I've never quite cracked the Instagram code. I think because I have to compete with all those influencers. I'm just giving it a plug just to get more people in here. And we'll wait a couple of minutes just while people funnel in. Because I don't ever set the time for the live stream. It just depends on how much work I get done that day. But I'm trying to do as much live streaming as I can. This is where Mr. Beast and Alex Hormozy and all these big guys are. Cool. Hi, Kimmy. Kimmy, you've been in quite a few of my live streams now. See, I'm starting to get to know you guys. And I've got plenty of advice. I'm just going to give this a plug. I've been doing a lot of posting recently because I've found that the more I've been posting, the more inquiries I've been getting. So it makes sense, right? Just post a lot. Okay. Okay, where are we? Okay, TikTok. That's the next one. There we go, TikTok. So I've got WeChat here, YouTube here, and let's get the old TikTok rocking and rolling. What do you guys think to my thumbnails as well? I think they're obviously, you can see I'm utilizing AI, but I think they're getting better and better. Just how to win in China. I thought that's quite a good name for my live stream. Right, we are live on YouTube. Red note, I'm still waiting for confirmation at the moment, which is proving a little bit troublesome at the moment. Luckily, I do a lot of B2B, so it doesn't really matter. And it doesn't, the kind of industries I tackle, it doesn't really matter if you can't live stream on Xiaohongshu or Red Note. But a bit of news, which is somewhat unrelated before we crack on with the live stream, is I highly recommend you go back and see my unrelated cultural live stream from last night, which was on Jimmy Ouyang. So Ouyang Wanchen had a talk show. So he did a stand-up show in Macau, which I went to at the weekend, and it was great fun. Although I think that Jimmy missed a few opportunities, which I went through in the live stream. I think I was quite measured in the way I approached it. See if I can do what. Can I do one more live stream? Let's see. Let's see if I can. I've got this old phone. I don't know if it's gonna. It is a because I've got two phones going and my computer, so we'll see. And then I want to jump straight into the topic, which is how to win in China. This is, I would say, more relevant for international companies entering or already in China. Whether you've been in China for a few months, a year, many decades, it doesn't really matter. But I think it's also relevant to Chinese companies and Chinese people out there that are watching this. I know a lot of my fans are watching. This live stream is not about learning English. It is about how to do business in China and how to win, how to grow a business in China, particularly for B2B, because that's an industry, an area that I cover. So under B2B, that could be life sciences, healthcare, manufacturing, tech, all of the above. I touch a bit of B2C in some education, some universities and private schools and stuff, but really B2B is my forte. Now, how to win in China? I think the first question is, do you want to grow in China? I get a lot of companies that are not fully invested in their heart. So the first question you've got to ask yourself is, are you actually really looking to build? Oh, Happy New Year. Hello, guys. I've gone straight into the topic because we're nearly 10 minutes in. I get a lot of companies approaching me. Actually, not a lot, some. I've got my bottle of water. Some approach me that they do want a piece of China, but they're not fully committed. And China is a 5-10 year plan. You can't crack China in 3 to 6 months. It's just impossible. It's years in the making. Any business nowadays, there's no such thing. There's an old saying, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. So that's the first question you've got to ask yourself. Are you fully committed? Now, if you're committed in your heart and your mind, then you can go piecemeal. You can, I like that word, piecemeal. You can go step by step. The number one thing to do business in China, and I bang on about this all day long in my content, particularly on LinkedIn, is you must utilize WeChat. Right? You must utilize WeChat. If you are not using WeChat in China, you might as well give up now. I have so many companies approaching me. I spoke to one literally yesterday who said, yeah, we're just going to rely on distributors and maybe just find one salesperson in China and see how we go. That company will fail. And it happens a lot. I speak to a lot of companies that my ideal client is someone that has pain. So they recognize that they really need to work with a partner in China. They can't do it by themselves, and they can't do it purely with their own Chinese team. It just doesn't work. You have to work with agency partners, people that know what they're doing when it comes to digital marketing. And that goes back to my first point, which is when you're building a business, your first port of call isn't the sales. Your first port of call is actually the marketing. You need to market your product or service out to the market. There's no point in trying to sell a product if nobody knows about it. And that's very common with a lot of international companies that are entering China, already some that are here. They don't have basic digital infrastructure set up. They don't have WeChat official account set up, Weixin Gongdonghao. They don't have WeCom, the CRM in place. I'm talking about, this is more for B2B companies. They don't have WeChat mini programs. They don't have payment solutions. They don't have WeChat video channels, Weixin Shiping. So they're trying to do business in China and wondering, and then when it doesn't quite work out, they're wondering why it doesn't work out. And the reason being is because nobody knows about you. And you're competing with Chinese competitors that are more agile, more quick. They've already set up their WeChat decades ago, and you're coming into the market wanting to take a piece of the market. So the basics you've got to have if you're a company coming into China, international company, or you're already in China, is you must localize digitally. Digital marketing is your first step. It isn't hiring someone. It's great to have a salesperson, a solid guy or girl on the ground, ideally Chinese. I think it's always better to have a local Chinese rather than relying on foreigners that speak really good Chinese to do your sales. This is what I'm talking about. And there's plenty of talented people out there in China. There's 1.3 billion of them. So it's not hard to find. And actually, I've had that recently. I've had a few companies asking me, hey, do you know people? Yeah, I know people that are looking for BD jobs and sales jobs. And I know a lot of recruiters. So by the way, guys, this is not for learning English. This live stream is nothing to do. Well, 不是英语老师，不是英语学习的直播. This is not a one for studying. I have to tell some of my fans sometimes. So I've just turned my radiator off. It's a bit warm in here. So how you win in China, the basics is, firstly, you have to be in it to win it. So you have to be fully committed. And you have to move quickly. If you're looking at China now and saying, oh, Q3, Q4, 2026, it's too late. Give up now. Don't even bother. And when I get companies approach me sometimes saying they want a piece of China. Oh, but we've already decided our budget. Why are we speaking then? Why are we talking? You need to have budget to deploy in China. If you want to do business here. And your first port of call is your marketing, setting up your digital infrastructure, making sure that you are localizing. And how do you do that? Localizing the Chinese market, connecting with Chinese target decision makers. It is WeChat. WeChat for B2B in particular is king. Having a WeChat ecosystem. And I'm not talking about just having the messaging app. I did a post on this today, actually, on my LinkedIn. And I put it on my Pengyouquan, on my WeChat moments, is you have to have a proper WeChat official account, WeCom, which is their CRM, which can now plug into other CRMs, by the way. WeChat can plug into Salesforce and things like that. I get some people that want to do business in China, but they're worried about IP and they're worried about security. We're all infiltrated. right? This is the other point I want to make. Don't think that WhatsApp is the most encrypted, safe platform on the planet. And by the way, Chinese don't do business on WhatsApp. They do business on WeChat. And they don't do business through email. I get a lot of companies approaching me saying, I want to do business. They're not responding to our emails. Chinese decision makers and Chinese business people do not do business through email. They do business through WeChat. So that's something you need. I'm trying to brainwash my audience at the moment that, you got to, if you want to do business in China, you have to have WeChat, right? And I'm not just talking about the messaging app. If you're a business, you've got to have an official account, which is the best analogy to use is on LinkedIn. When you post those articles, imagine if those business pages that you have on LinkedIn, if that was a part of WeChat and you could produce an article every week and you could have a menu bar where you can contact people and contact representatives from the company and find out more. That's where decision makers in China, particularly B2B, that's where they hang out. That's where you're going to connect with them. So you really need to have a proper China digital infrastructure. I bang on about this all day long, and it gets a bit frustrating because I still get companies approaching me that want to do business here in China. And I'm not a guy that gets frustrated, but I post every day, everywhere about this stuff. And it's just a case of spend 15 seconds to read what I'm writing. All the answers are there. You just need to partner. It's an interesting time because we've just had, obviously, Keir Starmer a month ago now come to China. And I've had a lot more British companies approach me, particularly B2B, which is interesting. I've also had a few B2C companies approaching me, which I don't typically touch, but I do have partners that can do B2C in China. B2C in China is very, very difficult. I would say you need even more budget than a B2B company. The thing is with B2C is you need to do many things, but for B2C, you need to be doing e-commerce, you need to be doing influencers, you need to be doing pop-ups and all sorts of different activities, events here in China. B2B, it's quite simple. Set yourself up on WeChat. If you've got a decent budget, I'm talking $50,000 to $100,000. Look into websites, Baidu, webinars. Webinars work in China. They work through the WeChat platform. So webinars are a crucial way to connect with decision makers. And exhibiting at events. Exhibiting at events is a must in China if you're a B2B company in 2026. And this applies to the Chinese companies as well, because the Chinese companies even get it wrong when they're exhibiting in China. Exhibiting at an event is about brand awareness, but it's also about the number one, sales. It's about selling your product or service. And those expos are so crucial for that funnel. To house those leads and to convert them to your sales team and move them along the funnel, it's so important. So I do talk about this a lot, that you need to be looking at events, not just attending events, exhibiting, having a booth at an event here in China, whether that's in Shanghai, ideally Shanghai, because Shanghai is where I'm based. But also this is where the best expos happen. Shenzhen, not bad. But particularly for B2B, it's all about Shanghai. Shanghai has some incredible events at the SNIAC, the Shanghai National International Center, which is out in Pudong. And then you've got the Shanghai National Convention Center, which is where they house CIIE, the China International Expo, International Import Expo, which I wouldn't recommend as an event actually, but it's still worth having on the calendar. So B2B is more simple. It's complex, right? B2B industries are complex, but actually when you set them up digitally here in China, it's actually quite simple. B2C, there's so many layers. Let's say it's a cosmetics company, because I used to work a lot with cosmetics companies. cosmetics company, right? So they've got to hit a target, right? So they've got to think about warehousing. They've got to think about e-commerce, Taobao, Tmall, live streaming with Wanhong, Borju, with live streaming with influencers. They've got to think about stock and price control and all these different things. Like so many, it's very complex. So to really and you're up against so much competition in China. Whereas B2B, actually, there's competition, but I think international companies can actually really succeed here in China with the right strategy and partner. Whereas you could have the right strategy in the UK and it could just be completely wrong, right? But in China, you're kind of, I always talk about this, you're always at an unfair advantage because you've probably got something that the Chinese need. And with B2B industries, it's very difficult to copy what you're doing. Yeah, they can copy it, but they'll never quite get that prestige that you have, right? So let's say it's a 100-year-old British company manufacturing, or a German company manufacturing doors or piping or any kind of material. If it's specific to that country, it's kind of difficult to copy that. Yeah, so B2C is very difficult. That's why I do more B2B, and I think the opportunities are more lucrative there. Good comments and questions, by the way, guys, coming in. Thought I'd don my suit today. Look quite dashing. I'm not a horror today. So wow, 70 people in here. It's a lot of people. 70 people, and we've had 750 people watch this so far. Wow, coming in and out. So how you win in China, this big question of relationships is key. But if people don't know about you online, then the relationship means nothing, right? Guangxi means nothing. When I meet people, the first thing they do is they look at my WeChat moments. They look at what I'm posting. Oh, he's an influencer. He's a Borju. He's an influencer. He posts content. He posts content in Chinese. He's localizing. So already the trust is, I've bridged that first layer that people know about me. I don't need to worry that I'm having to sell myself because I've produced thousands of videos in China and thousands of pieces of content all over LinkedIn. So you really need to, oh, hello. Hello, Julia. Hello. So relationships are important in China, but I would say your digital presence is even more important, and your offline presence. So exhibiting at expos, doing events is really important. But if there's some takeaways you can take away from this today, if you're B2B, an international company entering or already in China, WeChat is king. You need to be exhibiting at expos, and you need to speak to me. Because there's a lot of nonsense out there. And I know what works in China. And you've got to have patience. I'm quite realistic with companies. You cannot crack China in 3 months. No company has ever cracked China. Did Lululemon crack China in 3 months? No, it took them years of hustle. I met the On guys, On, the trainers. It's a bit of a sliding doors moment. When I was first working in China, I met the guy On, the Pausier, the trainers. They were a tiny office in Shanghai. This was back in 2017, 2018. It took, On is now a phenomenon in China, right? Those trainers that people wear and around the world. But they weren't an overnight success. It took them years. And they were there for years beforehand. So you need to have patience, the right strategy, the right partners, people that know what they're talking about, people that can execute. Moi, I would throw my hat into the ring there. And you need to have clear KPIs. What do you want to achieve from China? What kind of sales are you looking to achieve? Budget. If I could talk about any word that is the most important word when doing business in China, it is the B word, and that is budget. If you do not have money for China, if you do not have a budget, I need to spell this out to people. If you do not have a budget, there's no point in us talking. There is no point in us, because you can't do China on the cheap. You can't do China for £5,000 or 50,000 RMB, grow a WeChat on 50,000 RMB. It just doesn't work. You could do that for a couple of months, maybe, but you're not going to build out a proper business. And when you build a business, you don't want to just make quick money and then leave, right? You want to build something that's sustainable. So people do ask me about budgets all the time, but how much are your services? I flip the question back to them. What's your budget? How much money have you got? Because if you don't know and you're not clear on your budget, that's a good indicator to me that it's just not going to work. Can you talk about a typical case you're working on lately? That's a really good question, Lily. I can't share too much about on case studies and NDAs, but I did work with a company last year where I was on the booth. So one of the unfair advantages you have if you work with someone like me is if I'm on a booth in China and you're exhibiting at an event, I'm going to smash the competition all day long. I'm going to beat every Chinese person there, every foreigner there, when it comes to qualifying, getting the leads, being active, being on my feet. I never sit down. I film content. I do live streaming. I get the right decision makers that are walking past the booth to follow you. No one's doing that in China, wherever they're from, foreigner, Chinese. Most people are just on their phones like this at events. So a particular company I worked with last year, they were exhibiting at an expo, and I was on their booth for 3 days. I was on my feet, filming content. I was getting rid of the time wasters, those kind of aunties and uncles and the students. I was focusing on the foreign Chinese decision makers that were actually going to buy their products and get deals going. So that's what I'm good at. I'm never in the booth. I'm always in front of the booth. So that's a case that I worked with. I can't share too much. And I wouldn't say it's arrogance what I'm saying. It's just I find it frustrating. Not frustrating, that's not the right word. I find it a real waste of time and money for companies that are spending 100 to 200,000 RMB, so 10 to 20,000 pounds on a booth and exhibiting at an expo, and then for their staff to sit there for hours on end on their phones when there's decision makers, there's Chinese decision makers and foreign decision makers that could be your potential clients walking past. I think it's a travesty. And I see it every time. Most people are bored when they're there. The people that are on the booths, they don't want to be there. But I want to be there. When I'm helping a company exhibiting at an expo here in China, I want to be there. I want to be presentable. I want to wear a suit. I want to smile. I'm going to be speaking Chinese and English and getting to know people and qualifying. That's the most important thing at these events. You want to qualify people. There are always decision makers at these events, and you just need to find them. So that's a case study. I've had more Chinese companies approaching me recently. The issue I found with the Chinese companies at the moment is, and it's kind of similar to the international companies coming to China, is budget. So to crack the UK, you can't crack the UK on 50,000 RMB, on 5,000 pounds, right? It's just not possible. You could grow an Instagram for that kind of price if you're a Chinese company out there, but it's the same both ways. You need to have a robust, decent budget in place. I would say minimum, you're looking like 15 to 20,000 pounds or more if you're an international company coming to China. That's to do that's to do some things. I can't get into detail at the moment what you can do, but also Chinese companies going west. You can't crack the UK on £5,000. It's laughable. 50,000 RMB. So when I talk about qualifying people, what I mean is when people are coming by the booth, you've got to get to know them. You want to see if they're a serious buyer, or are they there just to steal your ideas, or are they there just to, they're a competitor, or are they there just to get a freebie? You get those aunties, those AI at these events that just go and they take a free item. And companies have spent a lot of money on those items, those freebies. Scan the QR code and you get a free, I don't know, let's say it's an Australian company, you give them a little kangaroo or whatever it is. I get rid of those aunties. I don't let them anywhere near my booth. I only focus on the decision makers. Actually, an auntie could be a decision maker. I'm not, but I can usually spot them a mile off. They usually have, I haven't got one with me, but they'll have a bag with them and they'll just fill it full of crap. And I get rid of those people in a polite way. I don't kung fu them out the way, but I do in a polite way, saying you're just not our customer. So that's what I'm very good at. If a company has a booth, I might not have the technical know-how I don't know the product or service inside out, but what I am very good at is qualifying people, getting to know people. Instagram is very necessary, I would say, and a website if you're a Chinese company going abroad. Again, a Chinese company, you can't, if you're a Chinese company going abroad, you can't do business on WeChat. That's not how they try doing business in the UK with WeChat. It doesn't work. You need to be using WhatsApp and email and websites. It's, you need to localize into the UK market. It's the same, I'm talking about bi-directional kind of marketing. So I can easily spot the decision maker. So Lily, I wouldn't say I can easily spot the decision maker, but with a few questions, I kind of know if people are serious or not and whether they're willing to buy a product or service and they come by your booth. But the other way you win in China is you also need really decent Chinese stuff, right? You need people that are going to be long-term, sustainable. They are not going to leave after a week or a month. They're invested in the company and they have that network and they're willing to hustle. Sometimes to do business in China, you've got to get out of your office. You've got to go for dinners and you've got to have drinks and meet people and go to events. I think some of the best Chinese salespeople are ones that are very out there, right? So they're also posting content. They're culturally intelligent, but it all comes down to delivery and results. So there are some really talented BD people I've met in the past here in China, guys and girls that are folks that are really good at what they do. This is a good question. How do you deal with people that come in just to steal your ideas? So I do this. No photos. So when people come by your booth and take photos and videos, you can't really prevent that in China. I think it's a good thing, actually. It's kind of free marketing. But you should have a product or service that is not easy to copy, right? Create a business that is difficult to copy. That's the first thing. Secondly, go and have a conversation with them. So you can usually qualify people and work out whether they are serious or not. But I always encourage people at expos and events Chinese people to come over and take videos and photos. In the West, in the UK, if you go around with a phone and start taking videos and photos, culturally, it would kind of be frowned upon. But in China, it's almost a must. I would say it's good marketing. Can I speak Chinese? 可以, I can. I'm currently studying for the HSK5, which is, I would say, business fluency. That's kind of my level of Chinese business. I don't know loads of Chengyu. I don't know loads of idioms, but I can sit in a business meeting and do business with Chinese people. And but this is what I will say about a lot of young Chinese people, and even 40, 50 plus. They're still young. They speak very good English. The level of English in China is very good. So most people you'll meet here can actually speak pretty decent English. But you can't just come to China with all your brochures in English and expect to do business with an English website and WhatsApp. It just doesn't work. You need to localize into China with a proper Chinese language digital strategy. I can read Chinese characters, not all of them, but a lot of them I can. So I can see a lot of people Guangzhou, which is they're following me right now, which is great. So guys, I'm going to cut it soon. I'm going to cut it there because I think I've given you guys some pretty sound advice tonight. But if anybody's got any final questions, I think this is an issue nowadays is a lot of people want quick results and to pay not a lot of money. And you can't nowadays. You need to have a decent budget to do anything now in life. And you need to have patience. You need to have years in the making to build a business. To assess things in 3 to 6 month cycles is just far too short, I think. A solid year to do stuff. I'm not sure what the question is. Can I share some tips to qualify people precisely? So a really good one when they come to the booth is when someone comes over, if they're actually if they're looking at the free item, that's a good way. So I look at their body language and I'm looking at, when they're looking up, are they reading the information? Are they nodding? Another one is if you have a brochure on a booth, someone comes over and does a flip like that, I find that they're not serious. So when the brochure is there and a decision maker comes out and they go like this and they flip the thing over, they're not serious. If you're serious, you know what you're looking for. So the ones that want to sit down, have a meeting pretty quickly, let's sit down, have a chat, they're usually pretty serious. And the ones that are they laser in exactly what they want. So let's say you were selling, let's say you're a medical company, you're selling a medical device. If they're looking at the medical device and you can see their eyes, right, that's the one I want. That's a good way to qualify people. But you have conversations, where you're from. I find that if people are vague in their answers, they're not serious. So you can disqualify them. But people that are upfront, yeah, I'm from here, I'm looking for this. I have budget. I'm looking for the thing that you sell. That's a good way to qualify people. Pretty good. Wow, so many questions. It's over 100 people in here. Wow. Really good questions tonight, guys. Really insightful, intuitive. I do have my own WeChat group, by the way. I have my own fan group in China. I have 10 actually, and each has anywhere between 20 to 50 fans in each one. And if you'd like to join, you're more than welcome to. You just need to message me directly on WeChat. So 如果你感兴趣加入我的微信粉丝微信群，你可以私信我，然后会发给你们二维码。So I can speak Chinese. Ooh, what did I just say, guys? Did you understand what I just said in Chinese? And this is another way I disqualify people. If people just say to me, how much? I throw the question back to them. What's your budget? I'm not just going to give you a price. You need to come to me and tell me who you are, what are your requirements, what's your pain, what's your KPIs, what's your budget, what does success look like in the next 12 months? What are you looking to achieve? You come back to me with those answers, then we talk. If you don't have those answers, you are not my client. Potential client. The WeChat code, I can send that to you afterwards. My only requirement is ideally the latest video that I've just posted. If you guys can just give it a like, go through, watch it in full. Don't just 1、2、3、画走, 1、2、3、画走. That's the worst thing you can do to my content is just flick through it like this. The best thing is actually watch the content because I spend a lot of time editing it. I do edit the videos myself. I don't have an editor. I'm yet to find an editor that can edit as well as I can. So if you would like to join my WeChat group, you're more than welcome to. You can just need to message me and engage with my content. Check out my videos. I've done multiple live streams in the last month, so check them out. Just message me, guys. Cool. Well, I appreciate your support. I hope I answered some ways that you can win in China. But if you can just remember one thing: budget, WeChat, message me. 3 things. Just when it comes to China, your positioning, I always position myself as that bridge. I'm a bridge between China and the West. Whether you're a Chinese company going abroad, overseas, or you're an international company entering, or you're already in China, I have someone in my network that I can connect you to that will grow your business in any markets. And also, I've been doing a lot with Southeast Asia recently, so Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam. A lot more partners have been approaching me about those markets. Can you help us in those countries? Yes, I can. I'm not a teacher. I haven't been a teacher for 10 years now. I look like Watson. Thank you. I always preferred Dr. Watson to Sherlock Holmes. I read the books when I was early teens. Actually, recently, I've gone back to the James Bond novels. I've been reading Ian Fleming's. I've gone back to Casino Royale. And I didn't read all the Bond novels when I was a teenager. I read a couple. I read Casino Royale and I read, I think, The Man with the Golden Gun. But anyway, I'm going back and reading all the old James Bond novels. So, anyway, guys, I'm going to cut it there. It's 50 minutes, quite a long time. So if you don't understand anything that I'm saying, go back and rewatch this live stream. You can watch it on double speed or whatever. But I think I've given some pretty interesting tips and pretty practical tips that you can apply for doing business in China. And you can always get in touch with me. It's pretty easy to find me. My channels are everywhere. You can always direct message me somewhere, find me. And I hope you all have. I've got many successful cases, but I don't share my case studies up front. I've got NDAs with a lot of companies, and so I'm not just gonna. And also, I talked about some of the cases already in this live stream, so just go back and watch this. But thank you so much for the support, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Back to work. No more Chunjie. So 新年快乐，过年好，恭喜发财，新年快乐，恭喜发财。And I hope you have a wonderful evening and week ahead. Take care, guys. 再见，拜拜。